Tennessee is about to be the global epicenter of new nuclear renaissance.
So this is a career that you can have and you can continue to live near your family and have a very rewarding career that's meaningful to billions of people, actually.
Like, stay curious and don't stop learning would be what I would tell younger Carol Ann.
Yes.
Don't get too hung up on, this is my path and this is what I want to do.
That's
because it can change, and it can change into something wonderful.
Welcome to the TennTalks podcast. Today's episode is one we think will stick with you. It's not just about jobs, it's about the future of Tennessee and whether young people from rural communities can find a path to a great career without ever having to leave home. We're talking about nuclear energy, which is one of the fastest growing industries in the country and one that Tennessee is positioned to lead. But here's the thing. You don't have to be a nuclear engineer, a physicist, or even a science whiz to have a place in it. Today, you're going to hear from people who are living proof of that. A Navy veteran from East Texas who spent 26 years underwater before coming back to fuel the same fleet he once served on. A girl from Erwin, Tennessee, who thought she was going to be a pharmacist until a summer job shadow changed everything. A former attorney with no engineering degree who grew up hearing about nuclear energy around the dinner table and now works at the cutting edge of reactor technology. And a governor who started his career as a master plumber and now believes rural Tennessee is about to become the global epicenter of a nuclear renaissance. These are stories about curiosity, grit, and what happens when opportunity meets preparation. So wherever you're listening from, whether you're a student, a parent, a counselor, or just someone who's wondering what's next, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Our first guest today grew up 5 miles from where she now works, which might sound like a simple story, but getting there was anything but straight. Carol Roberts is a Unicoi County high school class of 2014 graduate who thought she was headed to pharmacy school, but a summer job shadow changed everything. She pivoted to chemical engineering at Tennessee Tech, landed an internship at Nuclear Fuel Services right down the road from her house, and never looked back. Today, she's the full process engineering unit manager at NFS, leading a team of about 25 engineers. Please welcome Carol Roberts. I want to start off with a super easy question, which is, why don't you tell us your name, where you're from, and your occupation?
So I'm Carol Ann Roberts. I actually grew up in Erwin, Tennessee, right up the road. And I went to Unicoi County High School, class of 2014. And I am the fuel process engineering unit manager here at BWXT NFS.
Wow. There's a lot of words before manager that I didn't know. So why don't you give us just a little bit, a taste of what your day-to-day looks like?
So I am the manager of about 25 engineers here on site in Erwin, and we maintain the technical knowledge and ability for our operations group on our Navy fuel side of the operations house. And so there's several different lines that we have here, and I'm one of 3 of the engineering managers for it.
Okay.
And so process engineers in general, which is what I did before I took over my manager position, they are responsible for providing work instructions for the operators, helping with the maintenance packages if we have, say, a pump that's failed, as well as doing continuous improvements and helping with the training courses needed for our operators.
Okay, very cool. Well, tell me, let's go back a little bit then. You said Unicoi graduate, class of 2014. Take me back to there just a little bit. When you were in high school, did you know that you wanted to work in nuclear?
I actually did not.
Okay, so what did you think you wanted to do?
So growing up, I actually wanted to go into pharmacy.
Okay.
I loved pharmacy. A local pharmacist was really impactful in my home life with my family growing up, and I loved chemistry and math, and so that was kind of a good fit for me.
Chemistry and math is the key.
It was big.
That opens a lot.
It does, for sure. And so that's where I wanted to go, and that's what I wanted to do. And actually, someone I go to church with let me job shadow the summer of my senior year to be able to make sure that that's really what I wanted to do before I went to 8 years of school and got into a lot of debt before I made that decision. And it was a good thing because I did a job shadow that summer and hated it. I did not want to go to school for that long and just become a pharmacist. It's for some people, but it just wasn't for me.
But that's what job shadowing is for.
Absolutely.
So you got to do it more than a day.
Yes, I got to do it for several weeks that summer.
That is the best.
It really was.
If I could get every student to job shadow for at least a week,
it was incredible. So, so helpful too.
So you got to see the very day-to-day work.
Yes.
And that's when it was like, oh,
this isn't for me.
This isn't for me.
Yes.
Okay.
I really wanted to be more challenged. I wanted to help problem solve more than do what I was doing at that point in time. Okay. And so thankfully I had already been accepted to Tennessee Tech University. And I chose there because they had a really good pre-pharmacy program.
That's right.
And so that's why I chose it originally. And it was actually the week before I was going down for orientation that I was going down with my mom. And she was like, you're already accepted. Tennessee Tech has a great engineering program.
Yes.
Why don't you get with an advisor and go talk to them? Let's see what a good fit would be for you. And so I got with a great advisor, and he said, actually, you'd be a good fit for chemical engineering. And so I changed my major right then and tried. Yeah. And so my first year, so Tech has a great program where you take a lot of intro classes your first semester to kind of get your feet wet, and they introduce you to a lot of different career opportunities during that first year.
The job shadowing of chemical engineering.
Yes.
Okay.
And so you went on plant tours. So Tennessee Tech is in Cookeville, Tennessee. And so you're not that far from Jack Daniels. Okay. And so our class actually got to go on a plant tour of Jack Daniels.
And to see how chemical engineering can impact that.
Exactly.
That's a very cool practical use there. But was that stressful though, going to an advisor? I mean, like orientation, and you're just like, hi,
I was terrified.
I would like to not do pharmacy anymore.
Yes.
And what led them to talk, like in what part of your conversation did they say, oh, this right here that you said makes me think chemical engineering for you? How did we get there?
The conversation looked like, hello, Dr. Arcee, that was my professor. This is me. Here's my background in terms of this is what I've always wanted to do. This is what brought me kind of towards pharmacy. This is what I wanted to do in that field. And this is what I didn't like about job shadowing. I told him, I said, I don't want to go to school for 8 years and become really in debt to then go to a flooded job market and not feel like I was using my brain enough. And he goes, well, you can still get into pharmacy aspects, but with a chemical engineering degree, if that's the field. And it's a 4-year degree, not an undergrad and then a professional degree as well.
Okay.
And so I was like,
I see it now. There was the baby steps of just like, okay, we'll take a step to the right.
Yes.
Still be in the field, but okay. Was that intimidating at all when you heard chemical engineering?
A little bit, just because I didn't know any chemical engineers.
Right.
I did not know what that looked like or what they did day to day. And so he did a really good job of kind of breaking it into groups of where it could go. So chemical engineers can go to food and drug industry. You can go to like wastewater and plant health industries. You can go into nuclear, which is where I'm at.
You can go to Jack Daniels.
You can go to Jack Daniels. It's very, very versatile. And so it opens a lot more doors than kind of narrowing down to one professional field. So at the time when I changed majors, I was like, okay, I could go help with drug research still and get into the pharmacy world that way. But then after my freshman year in college, another lady that I went to church with, actually, she worked here. She worked at NFS. And she approached me when I was home for spring break and said, have you heard of our internship program?
Oh, very nice.
And I said, we have an internship program at NFS?
Home? Like here?
5 miles away from my house? You're telling me I can live at home and go to Watauga Lake during the summer, but still work and have a meaningful job? She was like, yes, that is a real thing that we have here. And so I applied and I loved it. And got on here as a process engineering intern. Okay. So the group that I manage now, I was an intern in that group.
Oh, that's very cool.
And I had wonderful mentors that basically adopted me. And they were like, hey, what do you like? And let me give you some projects to work on that are in the field that you like, so you can figure out if this is something that you want to do or not. And I loved it. They were so kind and so willing to teach me and willing to help. And it solidified it for me. And so then when I went back to school the next semester, I had classes like thermodynamics and fluid mechanics and material balance, which can be really difficult on paper. But after having my internship, I saw it all come together.
You got to see the application
Yes.
before ever getting the job to do so. So was the internship between freshman and sophomore year?
That was my first summer.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, just a couple questions about that, because
Great.
that's such a fun internship to think of a 19-year-old.
19.
Right?
Mhm.
19 being like, oh, I get to work nuclear this summer. So
Absolutely.
it's fine. You know, you guys take
Nobody does that,
whatever
yeah.
your summer job is, not as cool as mine.
Yeah. You're at McDonald's, I'm here.
That's right. Like, how long did that take just for the training of being around everything? Like, how long did you get to train as an intern? Because, I mean, the summer's only 2 months, 3 months,
About 3 months, yeah. So in terms of training before I got to do meaningful projects, just like every new employee, there are some general employee trainings, and they're here specifically just in the nuclear world. There are higher regulatory and safety implications. So there's a lot of safety training that goes on too, which was really helpful when I went back to school, because second year, we had a lot of labs. And so already having safety training, like you want to make sure that you have gloves on, you want to make sure you have long sleeves before you handle these chemicals, was really helpful going back to school too. In terms of length of that training, just like any other employee that would start here, it took about 4 weeks of formal classroom training. You're going to sit in a classroom, we're going to learn all these things, you're going to be tested on it. And then you get with your mentors, and the less formal but still training occurred. So you're assigned a mentor. They, especially once I received my clearance and I was inside the plant, the way that we handled our internships was, you're a baby engineer. Where I go, you go. You have a buddy. And so I'm going to walk you through engineering change packages, and I'll walk you through how we evaluate the system in a safety standpoint. That way you got a little bit of a nugget of what it was going to look like for a day-to-day process there.
That's such a cool investment from the NFS side.
Yeah,
like to think
awesome.
that they, are able to, I don't know, kind of just grab youth and say, look, this is an option, and and we're going to give you as much exposure and experience. Because not to be too meta, that's what we're trying to do here for Unicoi students, is to say, you may not know what is in your area. You may not know what is growing, in these rural areas. And so we want to expose you to that as well. We want to show you what could be an option. So, I had a question about just, were there any moments in your major where you felt like quitting, where you felt like changing majors? But would you say that the internship kind of helped kind of tie that together to bring, because obviously the goal of that first internship is to hopefully bring you back the next summer for another internship, right?
Yes.
So you did not work with NFS between like fall and spring.
I actually did.
Okay, tell us more.
I had the opportunity to come home and work over Christmas break.
Okay.
And so Christmas break at Tech during my sophomore year was about 3.5 weeks. And so I contacted my mentor and I said, hey, I'm going to be home. We don't have any travel plans or anything. Is there anything I can come help you work on? And he said, absolutely. I will go and sign the security forms now so that you can get back in the plant. And they're not any big projects, but we've got some stuff we're working on.
Right.
And we'd love for you to help us. And so I was able to work actually 2 Christmas breaks during my internship time.
Wow. Which offers amazing touch points between every part of your education. So that if between every semester, basically, you got to do a touch point of like, I am in the right direction.
Yes.
Like just kind of confirming each step along the way.
And back to your first question, it really did solidify for me. That's what I wanted to do. And it completely changed it for me, rather than going to pharmacy versus this. I didn't even know this existed, and I fell in love with it. I thought it was so interesting and so fun. Now, in colleges now, there's more nuclear programs and nuclear engineering programs than there were when I went to school, which you don't have to be in nuclear engineering to work in a nuclear field.
Okay.
And something that's interesting that we've been working with colleges for is having electives for other engineering directives that they can take in the nuclear school so that you can be an electrical engineer, but take a nuclear engineering class and just gain some more knowledge on it.
Right.
And so that's been pretty interesting. And that didn't exist for me. And so having my internships and being able to come back and have those touch points really solidified it for me. My second semester freshman year, actually right before I took this internship, I really considered changing my major.
Okay.
I had a horrific car wreck actually and had a concussion, and it was hard for me to think. And so moving through that, I was like, is this really the right spot for me? Is this really where I need to be? And I had already been accepted for my internship. I was coming home anyway. Said, we'll give it a chance. Let's try it. And loved it. And it was the best decision I made.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. In your day-to-day life now, what does a typical work day look like?
So in my role, I come in the morning and I touch base with my area leads. So if a processing line is from A to Z in different sections, we've broken it up into smaller groups. And so there's a lead engineer for each of those groups. So I touch base with all of them and I'm like, okay, what's broken today? What other procedures do we need to fix? Who needs help with what?
Right.
And I really help coordinate resources to solve those problems.
So the beginning of the morning is damage control.
Basically.
Is what went wrong after I went home yesterday?
Yes.
And what could be improved upon?
Right.
What did you notice?
Right.
And then the rest of the day is kind of being proactive and reactive to what those problems are.
Yeah.
Wow. What would you say are some of the skills you use most from your college training?
Honestly, I would say the project aspect and the teamwork aspect. So one of my favorite things about being in process engineering is that you talk to pretty much every group on plant site. It's a very collaborative group. So I cannot make an engineering change without talking to safety, without talking to operations, sometimes without talking to security. And it depends on what that looks like. And then I want to talk to maintenance to make sure that I'm writing work instructions that they can follow and that makes sense for them. And that's in a safe way to handle a pump or a lift plan if something's really heavy. And so being able to coordinate that with all of these groups and talk to them frequently, I love it.
Okay.
I think that's really fun.
That sounds like it could be a tad bit overwhelming, but you're saying, hey, this is actually, because everyone's on the same team. Everyone wants
everyone has
things
the
to
same
be better.
goal.
Exactly. We're all working towards the same, and then
Yeah.
you're looking at their different skill sets. Wow.
It also makes it to where not every day is the same.
Yes.
Every day is a little bit different. And to me and for most of the people in my group, that's a great aspect.
And when you tell people you work with nuclear energy and you tell a little bit about your job, what would you say is the thing that surprises people the most?
I would say I explain the way our plant here is more of a chemical processing plant, but the chemical that we're dealing with is uranium.
Okay.
And that surprises most people.
I was going to say,
because
they didn't put that together, chemistry.
right. Like normally when you think nuclear energy, it's hey, you're a reactor and
Yes.
we're producing energy.
Yes.
And our plant site here, that's not true. We're making the fuel to then go to those reactors.
Gotcha.
And so that's probably the most surprising thing for most people. People see it.
Misconception, you get to point out and go, hey, actually, there's more to it than that.
Right.
And we get to be the more to it.
Exactly.
What does career growth look like in your industry? Like, what do you think the next 5 to 10 years looks like?
For me personally?
No, let's start
Or
with the
in general?
industry.
Okay.
Because I do want to hear from you. But
Okay.
yeah, what do you think nuclear itself looks like in the next 5 to 10?
It's growing. It's growing a lot. I actually got to go to a nuclear opportunities workshop last year in Knoxville. And I had been the year prior, and just the conference itself from 2024 to 2025 had tripled in the amount of people that had come in terms of industries, not just individuals that had come. And so there's a lot of opportunity right now. It is not just chemical plants that work in nuclear. We are building a lot in East Tennessee as well, honestly. So we've got BWXT has two additional sites in East Tennessee. We have one in Jonesboro and we have another one in Oak Ridge. And it's growing. It's a lot of components as well as working with depleted uranium, as well as Other industries are making different fuel types, as well as small modular reactors are becoming a really big thing right now, especially with the growth of AI.
Okay.
So AI data centers need to be powered.
Yes.
And a really clean way to power them is with these small reactors called SMRs, or small modular reactors. And then to make the fuel for those small modular reactors, a lot of companies are starting up, and we're seeing a lot more nuclear energy jobs and sites pop up around the area.
So you're saying the advances in other technological fields could also just greatly impact you guys as you look to do that. And I think that's probably one of the misconceptions that I had, which is that, I mean, rural Tennessee is a hotbed for nuclear energy.
It is. Absolutely.
I'm from West Tennessee. So I knew that Oak Ridge existed, but I didn't know how far that web had gotten since World War II. I had no clue that it was, in Irwin. We've been here with the Heirs Foundation for years. I've gotten to visit multiple times, and this was still one of the new things of like, oh my gosh, there's a whole facility. Wow. What are you talking about? Like that is crazy. But yes, what about you professionally in the next 5 to 10 years? What would you like to see yourself doing?
I honestly just love this company. And so anywhere that I could be that is helpful to people is where I want to go. So that doesn't really have a great title, but I just want to be impactful to engineers.
Your highest potential.
Yeah.
Here.
And really just trying to help the folks on the floor, as well as the engineers, as well as keeping our safety standards high. We have really high safety standards. And so being able to do that, whatever role that looks like.
That's right. That's right. You mentioned earlier colleges were adding a little bit more of the nuclear options and stuff. As you see new people come on, what kind of educational options are you seeing from, it could be community colleges, could be TCATs, could be 4-year degrees. What kind of mix are you seeing?
So I'm actually involved pretty heavily in our intern program.
Oh,
so
what do you know?
I graduated from our intern program, and so I've tried really hard to be helpful with that coming back.
That's right.
And so not just in the engineering world, but also the internship as a program. So we have several internships just in the engineering field, but also in security, in IT, in environmental safety. I believe maintenance is trying to get one this summer. And so we're growing it in all aspects. So in terms of education, in the engineering interns, we typically have chemical, mechanical, and electrical engineers. In our safety disciplines, that's where you can see nuclear engineering, as well as a lot of biology or chemistry degrees in terms of environmental health and some of our safety disciplines there. We had one last year that was actually a chemical engineer who worked in fire safety, which was great. And that was kind of what his passion was. And so that was a good fit for him. And then we've also had several, I'm going to say more techie degrees, like computer science and some programming people that work in our IT world for degrees there. But honestly, a lot of them have start with community college degrees, and especially with the Tennessee Promise, being able to go to places like Northeast State for 2 years for free is huge. And so we the internship program, try to go to the community college as well as the big 4-year schools to get interns, because there's a lot of good people and good resources to use from those places that may eventually go to a 4-year school or don't need to. And we could still use that and still see that benefit. In terms of like TCAT schools and things like that, we have a lot of drafters. We have our maintenance department has welders as well as hands-on pumps. We have this whole series of master mechanics here on site where we hire them on and then give them the training that they need. But if they come in with some of that, it's just helpful.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're opening my eyes to so much. There's almost any career field that could be applied to nuclear.
Yes.
Because I obviously thought of internships as I'm going to try to handle nuclear atoms someday. So I want to intern at a nuclear facility, or I want to be in engineering. I want to intern. But I mean, I never considered IT, mechanics, safety. Safety is obviously the number one priority
Absolutely.
At NFS. So it would make so much sense that you would need interns. That way you have people passionate about that safety. That is crazy to think about.
It's awesome.
That is a lot of fun. Does your next steps as you try to, just be the biggest impact you can be at NFS, does that include any kind of additional education or certifications? Like, are there any, and I'm not even asking just about degrees? Are there any, I don't know, new workshops, certifications, like smaller things that would be beneficial?
I'm trying to think. So in terms of like for high schoolers coming in, really the things that we look for, yes, we love technical people and we do have a big field for that, but really looking at work ethic and your ability to work on a team also is just as important. Because like I was saying earlier with the process engineering group where you touch every group on plant site, you got to be able to work on a team. You got to be able to communicate effectively. And as well as just some of those softer skills are really big too. So I'd say even if you're not trying to go for a 4-year engineering degree, being able to have those skills is still very useful here and in those fields. Certification's not as much. A lot of things that we need you to know, if it's critical to know, we'll provide that training for you. Yeah.
It's important enough. You guys are like, we'll cover that.
Well, and we don't expect everyone to walk in and be like, I am a pro at this. I got you. And it's like, how? What do you mean?
You're not allowed in.
Yeah, it's like, I'm confused.
What would you say right now is kind of some of the biggest challenges in your industry? And this could be you personally, like as your day-to-day or just nuclear in general?
I think some of the biggest challenges are the misconceptions.
Yeah.
And coming through that and educating people so that we're on the same page and we understand that this isn't exactly what that is. Similar to, hey, we're actually a chemical plant.
That's right.
And the same idea with AI. It's like, hey, these other things in the world that are growing, this is a clean and safe way to solve those solutions. And
I think
people
clean
just
and
don't think
safe
about
is
that.
probably something you have to combat as well, right?
Yes.
Like it's because obviously anyone can Google, disasters from 30 years ago. And you're
Exactly.
like, hey, so just like how everything else has advanced, it's very clean and safe. Like
Yes, and we are highly, highly regulated. And so we have very strict procedures and we have high regulation as well. And people don't understand that either. And that's also not a bad thing.
Right.
Those things are in place to keep us, the workers, safe, keep our community safe, keep our environment safe as well.
And what would you say is one of the biggest rewards of being in your industry?
I just think it's so cool. To be honest, I am a nerd at heart and I think it is so cool. I love being able to teach people about it and see the light bulb click for them in terms of the people that work directly for me or the internships that we work with. That is the most rewarding for me.
Well, tell me what you would say to yourself as a high school student. This is advice for any high school student who's considering what to do next. Because I think it's even silly for me to say who's considering a career in nuclear, because really it sounds like you can bring so many different careers to nuclear. So what kind of advice would you give yourself as you're starting to explore that? Oh my gosh, I don't want to be in pharmacy.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay curious. And don't stop learning. Like stay curious and don't stop learning would be what I would tell younger Carol Ann.
Yes.
Don't get too hung up on this is my path and this is what I want to do.
That's
because it can change and it can change into something wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What would you say to a student who's worried about not being smart enough for a career like this, that they may be intimidated by science or maybe not know their options?
I would say ask all the questions. Talk to your advisors. We have several different opportunities to come and talk to us employees out in the community. It doesn't have to be just career fairs. And I don't think it exists that you're not smart enough to be here.
Ooh, I like that. You are worth being here.
Absolutely. We've had several folks that I know of that work on my production floor that graduated from high school and started working here. And so it is not required to have a 4-year, very technical degree to have a very successful career here.
Very cool. I wanted to end, if you don't mind, with just a couple rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And that's a very misleading title because they're not rapid fire, but I just love to call them that. So that way, hopefully, it puts you at ease. Number one is, what's your favorite part of your job?
The people I work with.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned so far in your field?
Probably still staying curious.
And then what's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I've ever received is probably question everything and it's okay to stop.
Not just stay curious, question everything.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and hanging out with us.
Absolutely.
This has been at the line.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.
Carol showed us what it looks like when you grow up practically in the shadow of the nuclear industry and find your way in through curiosity and a willingness to pivot. Now we're going to hear from the man on the other side of that equation, the one whose team those engineers support every day. Al Onley is not from East Tennessee. He's from East Texas, and he took quite the scenic route to get here. A love of chemistry and physics led him to the U.S. Navy, where he spent 26 years operating nuclear reactors on submarines. After that, he spent 4 years teaching high school chemistry and physics, passing that same spark on to students. Now, he's the operations director at Nuclear Fuel Services, where his team makes the nuclear fuel that powers the Navy's submarines and aircraft carriers. Please welcome Al Onley.
So my name is Al Onley, and I work at Nuclear Fuel Services, a subsidiary of BWXT, and I'm the operations director.
Okay.
And at Nuclear Fuel Services, we call it NFS. We make the nuclear fuel for Navy submarines and aircraft carriers. They have nuclear-powered reactors on there, provide propulsion, electrical power that allows them to go and operate for infinity, if you will. For as long as they have food, they can be out there and operate because of nuclear power.
Wow.
Which is what's so critical about having nuclear power for the submarines and aircraft carriers. So we make that fuel here.
Okay.
We also make fuel. We downblend high-enriched uranium to low-enriched uranium for TVA reactors to provide commercial power.
Wow. Let me just start by saying, now I'm in West Tennessee, and so it is crazy to think that just across the state in East Tennessee, there's all this fun happening with nuclear. How did you start with nuclear power?
What I would say is a lot of people in the nuclear field started off through the Navy's nuclear power program. Absolutely.
Okay.
And my interest in chemistry and physics started when I was in high school.
Right.
And I had a teacher that taught chemistry, and it made it accessible to me. I wasn't a confident science student. It wasn't something that I felt, was my thing. Mm-hmm. But I had this chemistry teacher, Dr. Berggren, who made chemistry accessible and gave me the confidence that I needed to go ahead and study that in college. And then when I was in college, I had a great professor, Dr. Peslak, that inspired me to look into physics. And I found that I love physics. And so it was really teachers that inspired me to the technical interest, the science degrees, and then the opportunity in the Navy just gave me an opportunity to use that for my career.
Very nice. Now, like what you mentioned when you said, in nuclear engineering, that is a small part of the bubble. Like once you expand out, when you're actually, working with it, it requires a lot more professions around it. In your job now, what are some of the professions that you see that can help in the nuclear industry outside of just nuclear engineering?
Yeah, that's great. Obviously, if you're starting off as a nuclear engineer, it's kind of obvious, right? But any engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, chemical engineer, we need all of those engineers, and we have them all here at the plant. But you don't even have to be an engineer. Someone with a technical background can come here and contribute very important jobs. Many of our all of our operators had to get a chemistry or physics at the college level, had to get one of those courses completed successfully to come to work here. But they don't have degrees in engineering, and they were able to come work here and begin making fuel. Many of them have become supervisors, become managers, and many of our managers and supervisors have non-technical degrees. They learn the technical piece by coming here and working. We have a great training program where we teach them the things that they need to know. They just have to have the competency to do the job, and we teach them how to do that. So you don't even have to have a technical degree to come here and work. You do have to have chemistry and physics at the college level to come here and work.
So that lays enough foundation for you guys that when they enter that training program, that they have the basics necessary, and then you guys take it from there.
That's right. And some of our employees took dual enrollment classes in high school. So they were taking college level chemistry or physics in high school and then come here and work right out of high school.
Interesting.
Many of our employees have worked in other fields outside of here, industry, or own their own businesses and came here to work as well. And so they would get that chemistry or physics through a community college or the local universities here.
Now, tell me about the training program. So if I'm an applicant and I have achieved my college level, is it chemistry or physics or chemistry and physics?
Chemistry or.
Chemistry or. So I've achieved my college level chemistry. I'm applying for a job. What would my, onboarding look like in a training facility?
Yeah, so you would come here and we would start with a general employee training.
Okay.
And it's a technical training. We teach you about a little bit about nuclear power, and we teach you about safety, because safety is the number one priority here, right? Yeah. Safety for each other, safety for the plant, safety for the local community. All of that is critical to what we do. So it's our number one priority, and we emphasize that in our general employee training from day one. After you get through with that, you'd go through a radiological we call it rad worker training, radiological training, where you learn a little bit more detail about working with the materials, the nuclear materials that we work with. And then based on what you're going to do here, your next training would be based on that.
Oh, so you kind of funnel in.
Right. It starts off kind of broad, and then it works its way right to the point that you're actually learning the systems that you're ultimately going to work on. That training takes several weeks to do that training. We start off with what we call a commons training. All the operators need to understand some basics before they even go into the facility and begin to operate in the facility. But then as we train them to what systems they're going to work on, it becomes much more specific. And then even after you're done with the classroom version of the training, we do on-the-job training. So you actually go out with a qualified operator and a supervisor who will help teach you the things on the job. So by the time you get to where you're responsible for operating it, you've had a lot of training, you have a lot of opportunity to develop your skills.
That's very cool to think, though, too, that they've walked in with just the basics there, and then you guys got them through that entire process. How long would you say that process takes from start to finish?
Well, that's a good question. The general employee training is a couple of weeks, radiological worker training included. And then the commons training takes a few weeks. And then the area-specific training, it really depends on the area, but another couple of months.
Okay.
So it takes, you're in training for a few months before you're on the job.
Which I'm sure is relieving to know when you start the job.
Yeah, if you come here, I'm going to go operate this equipment. I'd like to know what I'm doing before I do it, certainly. And we want you to know what you're doing before you do it.
Let's talk about the job market for just a moment. What does growth look like here in the next few years? I mean, obviously, nuclear is expanding. The technology is getting better. Do you see this growing in the next 5 to 10 years?
We are growing. We are hiring. We've had the most growth I've seen since I've been here. The number of operators that we've been bringing in here recently, our training program. I was just walking through the training center today, meeting some of the people there. It is full as we're training folks for a new system that we're getting ready to start up called U-Metal later this year.
Okay.
So we're expanding here.
New programs.
Right. And we have even a newer program that is just in the design phase in Oak Ridge, where we're going to make highly enriched uranium. So we have lots of growth at Nuclear Fuel Services, lots of growth at BWXT, but just the nuclear industry as a whole, right? There are a lot of people are calling it new nuclear, right? So we've got small modular reactors that are in the design phase. Some of them are in the early construction or the development phase. That would be small reactors that could provide electrical power for a small community or a large business that are in the development phase right now. And there's lots of companies out there doing that. BWXT is working on some of those as well. In addition to the other things the things that we've been doing for years in terms of the Navy nuclear reactors, which in a lot of ways are small modular reactors. So we have a lot of experience with that in BWXT. But you can see some predictions that in the next 5 years, the energy needs of the country are going to grow by 50%. A lot of that will be provided by nuclear power. So that's why there's so many people interested in it right now, is how important it is, because it's a renewable energy.
Right.
It's an energy that doesn't produce carbon dioxide and the other things that many of our energy sources do, that makes it very appealing.
Speaking of appealing, in this new era of nuclear that we're stepping into every day, what are some of the salary potentials that someone could expect to make in the nuclear field?
It ranges, but the nuclear field is definitely on the upper end of even starting salaries. So if you're an engineer right out of school, you will make more than your peers coming into the nuclear industry in general.
Okay. What are some of the biggest challenges in the nuclear field right now that you're seeing?
Well, one is having enough people come into the field, right? So we need engineers. We need the technical people who are interested in coming in, and it is a hard job. I'm not going to say it's an easy job. You need people who are willing to work hard. But finding enough people in that technical field that want to come into the nuclear power industry is a challenge for us. The Navy's working hard on that, and we're working hard on that. So if you're interested, in something like this, possibly later on in your career, when you're in high school, begin to take those science classes. Don't be afraid of them.
That's right.
Have the courage to take the class. Work hard. You don't have to be perfect, right? Work hard at it and learn. Get those behind you, and then if you're interested in the engineering field, do that. Work with your counselors to go to the colleges, apply for those programs, and get into the engineering field. But even if you say engineering's not for me, but you're technically inclined, this is a great industry for you as well.
There's growth in all of it. That's fantastic. Tell me, what do you think is the most rewarding part of your job?
The most rewarding part is because what we do is important, right? So we've been doing this since 1960s here at Nuclear Fuel Services, making fuel for the Navy. I believe what submarines and aircraft carriers do out there for the defense of our country and for peace in the world is extremely important. And so I think that knowing that and doing that well, doing that safely is inspirational to me. And that's why I do what I do. You
get to play your part in not just this community, but also for the U.S. as a whole.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you really think about what we do here in Northeast Tennessee and really what we do here in Irwin, Tennessee, and how much of an impact it has across the world. It's pretty incredible to think about. It's overwhelming, actually, sometimes to think about. But you can do a very important job. And like I said, one of the most important things we do in the nuclear industry is do our job safely. Keeping safety as our number one focus and priority is extremely important to the entire industry. We have a whole industry designed around that. So I think that is a critical part of our job. It's one of the things that I'm inspired for because I'd like to see nuclear power continue. And if we don't do it safely, it won't.
What's one piece of advice you would give your younger self pursuing this career into first chemistry and physics and engineering and then later into nuclear? The young man who is just starting those chemistry classes that before they were accessible, what's something you would tell them?
Well, we said it a little bit, right? Don't be afraid to take the classes. They're hard classes, sure. You don't have to be the smartest person there ever was. You don't have to be Albert Einstein to do this job. But you have to have the courage to take the classes and to put yourself out there and to be willing to do the work. So that would be my encouraging them to not think too small, think about your opportunities, and just take one step at a time, right? You don't have to be at the end game from the very beginning. Just one step at a time and you'll get there. I never thought when I was taking chemistry in high school that I was going to be doing this for a career. I really didn't. And I remember Dr. Berger, my high school teacher, had gotten an opportunity to go and tour a submarine and talk to us a little bit about the program. I did not think at that time that was for me at all, right? But I'm sure when I, later on in college, when I got that thing in the mail from the Navy saying this is a real program, I remembered that, and I thought, maybe I'll look into that. And so, that experience as a high school student, I never thought that I'd be doing this, but it was the first step.
That's right.
And it's just about putting one foot in front of the other, not getting too far ahead of yourself, and you can get there.
Al gave us a powerful reminder that you don't have to have it all figured out from the start. One step at a time can take you from a high school chemistry class in East Texas to powering the United States Navy. But where do you take that first step? That's exactly what our next guest has spent her career answering. Teresa Duncan has been at Roane State Community College for over 30 years and is Vice President of Workforce Development. She's become one of the most important connectors between Tennessee students and the booming nuclear industry. Roane State sits right in the heart of Oak Ridge, ground zero for Tennessee's nuclear renaissance. And Teresa has been tapped by the Tennessee Board of Regents to help all 13 community colleges and 23 colleges of applied technology get ready for what's coming. She's here to tell you that no matter your background, your skill set, or your zip code, there's a path in. Please welcome Teresa Duncan from Roane State Community College.
My name is Teresa Duncan, and I've been at Roane State Community College for over 30 years. But I never worked necessarily directly in nuclear, and I'm not a nuclear scientist. However, part of Roane State service area is this Oak Ridge, Anderson County, Roane County area, which in our state is, as it's mentioned in American Nuclear Society News, that we're kind of an epicenter, Tennessee is. And in Tennessee, this area and this region is, has the most activity, although it is going to take our entire state. How I got into this is being a workforce development vice president for Roane State, and that would deal with any industry. It just so happens we happen to be where there's a lot of activity with nuclear. And over my career, I've spent a lot of time interfacing with various companies, and now more because so many are announcing to come to this area. And we're proud as a community college to be able to support them. But overall, TBR, Tennessee Board of Regents, who has all 13 community colleges and 23 TCATs, Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology, is interested in how they support this industry collectively. So they have asked me to help them make sure that TBR across the entire state is primed and ready as they are to support this industry no matter where, whatever school and whatever community college. Pellissippi, Chattanooga State actually was a community college that had been supporting TVA with nuclear for many years. So there's a lot of activity at Roane State, but also across Tennessee Board of Regents to support this industry. And that's how I got selected to try to help connect all of that to nuclear.
Well, we are really excited about it, and it's amazing to see what all you're doing here. Tell the listeners, what is nuclear energy and why is it so important to us as Tennesseans and us as Americans? Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'm not, as I tell you, the nuclear scientist, but in general, it's a splitting of atoms that in a lot of different ways create energy, of which we know we need. We're kind of an energy, we are an energy dependent nation across the country. I mean, when our cell phone goes down, we freak out, right? So we need a lot of energy, AI centers and this. So the nationwide, our goal is national defense with nuclear and other things, but nuclear related. AI, to win the AI race. Other countries, other nations are, right ahead of us in some cases in that, and we have to know how to use that effectively, but we have to power it because it takes a lot of power, as I'm sure you've heard in your other interviews. But also national defense, AI race, winning that and being able to support it, and then energy independence, basically. As a nation, trying to become more independent and not relying on other forms, other countries to make us have access or allow us to have access, not be at their mercy. So those are the three main overall goals.
That's amazing. So we did a little bit of talking at the TCATs. Can you speak to sort of what those TCAT programs, I know your really specialty is community college, but what are the programs, if you can speak to it, for TCAT and community colleges and university track for people who might be interested in a career in nuclear?
Right. And I want the message to be, if they don't hear anything else, is that if you have interest in working in this industry, and there is a place for you in all kinds of jobs. So not, the PhD nuclear engineer, I think I've heard this number, for every one nuclear engineer, there's, 5 to 10 technicians that might follow and support and work with them. So there are, in this state, multiple opportunities. So the message is, if you want to be involved and you have an interest in a lot of different areas, you can be in this industry. As a TCAT, for example, if you are going, and skilled trades are absolutely, you'll hear that all over and all across the state, and especially in this industry. They've got to build these SMRs, they've got to build these buildings, and so actually in the construction is probably the number one need, because
tell our listeners what SMR means.
Thanks, small modular reactors. And as you know, we've had the larger ones. TVA has had the large reactors, but now what's coming are our smaller ones. And but they need to build the buildings. They need to build the SMR itself. Centrus Energy, for example, here, who enriches uranium. What happens in Oak Ridge here with Centrus is they actually manufacture the centrifuges, which is going to be sent up to Ohio to actually run the enrichment. So there's everything from advanced manufacturing, so maintenance managers, machinists to run the CNC machines, robotics, HVAC, heavy equipment, construction, electricians. I have some data that says we need like 30,000 electricians over the next 6 to 10 years. I mean, so the skilled craft and coming out of our TCAT is absolutely essential. I mean, there's truck driving, hauling this material, and there's just any number of jobs that you would come out of a Tennessee College of Applied Technology and you would get into this industry. Absolutely necessary. You might go through a union, depending if that company utilizes union labor. So you could come out of a TCAT with, let's just take electrical. You could come out with a diploma from them.
After how long?
Some of those programs are probably 12 to 16 months.
Okay.
So short, but then you could go straight into some support company, BESCO, there's all kinds of companies that would take them. Or you could go into a union apprenticeship and get time off of your related technical instruction. So as an example, IBW here in Oak Ridge, if you graduate from either a community college 2-year electrical, Pellissippi State has that, or a TCAT electrical, then you go into the union's apprenticeship, which is 4 years, and you only have to do 3 because you've already gotten a start on it. So there are a lot of paths into these jobs, and they're, why are you interested as a student? Because they pay really well.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I wanted to emphasize as well.
How much are they making in 5 years if they were to do what you just
So
said?
if we just use the electrical example, and actually my son did that. He went to TCAT Harriman when he was in high school, and he did some dual enrollment. He went into the IBEW Electrical Union in Oak Ridge, and now he's a Y12 electrician. And I don't know his exact number because he doesn't tell mom everything, but he's probably, making 80, 90 to 100,000 depending on overtime and other things. So that's the range.
Yeah.
And he's 25.
That's awesome.
And in an apprenticeship, he learned and earned money all the way through. So there's just a lot of different paths in this industry.
What skills or subjects in high school or you think are the most helpful for people who are thinking about a career in nuclear energy?
So depending on where you want to enter the industry, if it's skills, or if it's all the way up to the nuclear technician or the nuclear scientist or chemical engineer, nuclear engineer, you obviously need to be able to read effectively and comprehend, because following protocol and conduct of operations, how this has to be done in order to be safe is important. So strong reading skills, strong math skills, and science skills. And then the technical hands-on for all those, the abilities to do the work that's all hands-on work. The chemical operator, you saw our chemical engineering lab. Y12, for example, as I told you, they come to us and say, we need 130 chemical operators. And we have a partnership with them, and they along with many other companies, Unicoi, Y12, ORNL, Premiant, even the food industry needs chemical operators, but they're all part of our advisory boards. All these programs across the state, TCAT and community college, 2 years, have advisory boards, so the companies are telling us what they need. But we have partnerships where there's apprenticeships in those programs, where, as you know, apprenticeships are technical training, hands-on, on the job learning, and RTI-related technical instruction. And many times either the TCAT or the community college does the RTI. Northeast State doing that up in that area for Irwin and all the companies up there. We have an apprenticeship with Y12 on our chemical engineering technology, which is chemical operators for them. And there are just multiple. I think TCAT Knoxville has apprenticeship with a subcontractor on heavy equipment. So there are just lots of opportunities for us to provide the learning side of that, and the companies provide the OJL. And most importantly, while that student's in it, they're earning money.
And that's so important for
Yeah,
so many
absolutely.
of our rural students.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about the biggest challenges in a nuclear career, like these regulations and some of the safety things we talked about earlier.
Well, if I'm speaking to one, there's a couple of things. From a community standpoint, people have to understand that it is safe, and when you don't have informed people and aware people, they are not sure that it is safe. They only remember stories of the past or stories in the news. And so even I said to my husband, who worked in the industry for 30 years, is it okay for our
my
son
baby to go?
Yeah, for our son to go into this? And he said, absolutely. It is now a safe industry. We've learned, we know what to do. So that's from a community standpoint. We can't be afraid of it. We have to embrace it and embrace the protocol that goes with it. The thing from an individual, and especially since we're talking to high school students, is get those good basic skills that we talked about, the reading, the math, the science, and such. But also, to get a Q clearance, you got to not get in trouble, because if you're going to end up needing a Q clearance to work in this industry, not every job does, but then they're going to do a background check, and they're pretty strict about who does this, they want to make sure that we have the right people doing this work.
So stay out of trouble.
Stay out of trouble. Yes, that's the best way to say it. Stay out of trouble.
So on the flip side, what's the most rewarding part of this? I know I hear a lot about clean energy and how good it is for our environment versus coal energy or the other kinds of things.
Right.
Talk to me about the most rewarding parts.
Well, if I'm an individual in high school, I'm probably looking at the dollars. There's some people, we just heard a student this morning talking about her desire to help the environment, and so that's a positive thing, as you mentioned, clean energy. But in terms of the dollars, you can walk out of some of these programs starting out at $80,000 a year, whether it's a TCAT program or community college. And of course, if you go on to the 4-year degree, you're probably starting at $110,000, $120,000. So there's a whole range, but it's good paying jobs.
So if you get an Associates of Applied Science in Nuclear Technology,
yes,
does any of that credits transfer over if you were to go to Knoxville as an example?
It does. Since it's an applied degree, there are gen eds, general education, that every student would have to take no matter where you go to college, period. And those transfer. And we're working on an articulation with UT Engineering with Dr. Brian Worth and Dr. Wes Hines. They have been so good to us. And that's another partnership. It's all across the spectrum. TBR schools partnering very well with our universities in the area. But yes, there's a pathway. We're working on a better pathway for those AAS degrees, because they're not like an Associate of Science, which is designed for you to come in and take 35 to 41 general education hours and only about 6 classes in this field of study. Then you go on to that 4-year degree where you get all of your field of study. The applied is you go straight to work. So you have 15 to 16 general education hours, and all the rest of your hours towards 60 in a 2-year degree are hands-on in the field type work. And so, but there is work being done to make that happen. You can go to a community college though and major in pre-engineering. As a matter of fact, Roan State has 120 students, and I don't have the number for every community college, but there are lots of people who come to a community college to get their basics and then transfer to it with their intention of going to a 4-year school.
Right, because you can get your
Tennessee Promise,
That's right.
Tennessee Reconnect, all Hope Scholarship, and there's just so many funny. If you want to go, there's a way.
That's great. And you don't have to be in a whole bunch of debt to do that.
You don't have to be in a bunch of debt to do that.
That's incredible. How is technology changing? And I did get to see a little bit of that, but we hear about these small module reactors like you were talking about, digital. What other kinds of things are going on with regards to the future of nuclear technology?
I think the use of AI for sure is going to impact that. The use of robotics and knowing how to, not only run a robot, but how do you do maintenance on one. So all of these things that we're seeing enter and being used in this industry, as well as everyone else, every other industry. There's the technician who actually uses it, but then there's someone who has to come in and make sure they know how to fix it. And we're actually designing a course. Right now it's going to be non-credit course, which means you're not going to earn college credit for it, but we're offering it to TCAT students who are graduating with their craft skill that is the expert at the TCAT has taught them. We now offer a 15-hour course on taking that craft and working in the nuclear industry. We've done that with over 120 TCAT students in this area, and we're going to scale that. But we're now working on a new class as a result of a TCAT Knoxville Give grant that they received, and we're talking, and Dr. Steinbach is designing it, where how do you do maintenance on a glove box? How do you do maintenance on those robots, those quadrupeds that we're using? When you have a hot cell simulator that you saw it was going to be coming in, which are the arms reaching in, robotic arms reaching in to do work, and you're manipulating that with your hands, but they're, things on the end that are...
It made me think of when I think about robotics in surgery with doctors.
Yes, absolutely.
It's almost just like that.
That's what it is.
With the nuclear energy.
And the reason that is because they're shielding. That's a form of shielding, right? You don't have to have your hands in it. You have robotic hands in it. And we'll have that in our lab by the end of this summer. But you have to do maintenance on all those. So those maintenance technicians that are going to be able to specialize and we're creating a course on that so that people know how to also maintain that equipment. Because it tears up. It's high dollar equipment.
For sure. Well, that's really incredible. There's a place for you however you like to use your brain the best.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So we talked a little bit about this, but if a high school student is really thinking about a career in nuclear energy, what should they be doing right now in high school?
So I think right now, as I said, we talked about don't get in trouble, really watch your step and watch your social media. What is your personality online? Because that's searchable, and you need to understand that it's not a little quiet thing. It's not just in your school.
That's for all careers.
That's for all careers. You're exactly right. It really matters when you're trying to work in this industry. But, the basic of the math and stuff, but also start reaching out to do dual enrollment. We have a nuclear technology student, and our first 9 students, next year we'll have 44 already. Actually, they started this January, 44 in our second cohort. One of the first 9, though, is an Oak Ridge High School student who is here as a middle college student. And so he's going to be, graduating from high school and then already having a 2-year degree. And the state supports that with the middle college funding. So do dual enrollment, knock out, if you're not sitting right here in the Oak Ridge area, there are a lot of programs you can take from a distance. Our environmental health and safety technology, where you are industrial hygiene or project management, those can project management can almost all be done virtually. And environmental health technology, which we've had at Roan State for 30 years, I think you can take almost everything except 4 classes where you'd have to come into a lab in Oak Ridge. But you can be preparing to get into this industry at whatever high school you're in, rural or not, by taking your dual enrollment gen eds, by getting dual enrollment with your TCAT, by taking math and the things like that, and then just keeping your life clean so you can pass the test that you needed to.
That's right. It takes a lot to be successful, but you can do it. So what would you tell a student who thinks they're not smart enough to do this?
That's a good question. I've heard multiple answers to this. At the end of the day, there is a spot for you. I'm not a nuclear scientist either, and here I am being a spokesperson for nuclear. So I don't have any of that science background like that. So there's a place. I mean, we've got a company, Orano, who's just come to us and said, hey, we're looking for an entry-level communications PR person. And that's not a nuclear science. So you are smart enough, especially if you have the willingness. So you can find your place in this industry in whatever it is your interest is.
Well, is there any final things that we haven't talked about that you want to make sure that our listeners hear before we wrap up?
I want to say that any employer that we talk to, there's definitely the skill set that they need, and that can be learned. through variety of ways. And when you get to that company, they're going to continue because in this industry, they have a lot of liability in making sure that you know what you're doing. But at the end of the day, it's a want to. You got to have I'm going to overcome whatever my barriers are, and I'm going to ask questions of people. How can I get in? How do I overcome this? How do I get gas money? How do I make sure that I can get myself to somewhere where there's internet if I don't have good internet at my house? So you got to have want to and desire, and anything that you see as a barrier, ask, because there are so many people like the Heirs Foundation trying to help your school systems, your local TCAT, your local community college, your local universities. There's so many churches that are even helping people. We have food pantries on our campuses and in these communities. So if you face a barrier, I guess my final message is, don't let the barrier stop you. Keep pushing forward and use the resources around you.
Teresa laid out the map, the TCATs, the community colleges, the dual enrollment programs, and showed us that the on-ramp to nuclear power is wider than most people ever imagined. Now we're going to hear from someone who found her own conventional on-ramp through the world of law and policy. Nikki Sizemore is based in Nashville and works in government relations for Kairos Power, an advanced nuclear company currently building a first-of-its-kind demonstration reactor in Oak Ridge, the very same community Teresa just told us about. Nikki is a former attorney with no engineering degree and severe dyslexia, and she'll be the first to tell you that none of that stopped her. Her story is proof that the nuclear industry doesn't just need scientists and technicians. It needs communicators, advocates, and people who can speak the language of policy. Please welcome Nikki Sizemore.
Well, thank you. First, let me thank you, Shannon, for inviting me to be on your podcast, and also to the Heirs Foundation for this invitation and including nuclear in the conversation. So I'm looking forward to it. But my name is Nikki Hishamian Sizemore. I work for an advanced nuclear reactor company called Kairos Power. I am based in Nashville, Tennessee, but we have a project going on in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where we're building our Hermes reactor, which is an advanced nuclear reactor. We use molten salt coolant and technology there. So we're currently constructing our demonstration series and a prototype, which we can talk about, called our engineering test unit. And then we'll be breaking ground on our second reactor called the Hermes 2, which is a commercial scale demonstration reactor. And that will be supplying electricity to the grid. We'll be putting 50 megawatts onto the grid in a partnership with TVA and Google. So hoping to have that online in a couple years, and we're very excited to be in Tennessee.
We are so excited. So for those people like me who don't really understand anything you just said, other than Google needs power and TVA provides power, can you just sort of explain it to me like I'm in kindergarten? What exactly it is that's happening here?
I'll back up a little bit about my experience in nuclear and my knowledge basis. So I have zero nuclear engineering background, degree, any of that. I just grew up in the nuclear industry. My family owns an instrumentation and controls business in Knoxville, Tennessee. So Oak Ridge is home to me. So Table Talk was about nuclear rods, controls, power, things like that. So I just kind of absorbed it through sitting and hearing my dad talk, go to conferences and events. So I'm going to explain it to you as a former attorney who now does government relations in nuclear. But really what nuclear is it's just a really fancy way of boiling water. So breaking it down, think about the stove you have at home. You're boiling water to make pasta or something. And it's really that process is what nuclear energy is. So when you turn on your burner creates heat. So that's either from gas or electricity. That heat warms up the pot, boils the water, which creates the steam. And the steam is where we spin the turbine and get electricity. So in a nuclear plant, you're essentially doing that. You're burning, your burner is the plant, and we're using enriched uranium as fuel. Then you have all these tiny little atoms that are splitting apart, and that's what we call fission. So you're splitting atoms, and when they split, they release a lot of heat. And that's considered like the gas on the stove is that heat source. From the heat from the fission is what boils the water. And we have water in reactors. Ours uses salt. It's a different coolant basis. But essentially, you heat up that system, which creates steam. And when the steam is produced, then we take the steam, we spin it to a fan, a turbine. So it's just a really fancy fan. Then we basically create electricity. So think about that science project where you're boiling water, you create steam, and a fan spins. That's nuclear energy. Just think about it as a fancy way of boiling water. So anytime you're cooking at the stove, you're essentially using the same principles we use in a nuclear reactor.
Okay. Well, hey, I think anybody can understand that. So that makes it a little bit more for our minds to be able to wrap our brains around it. Okay. So
Exactly.
this is very, very cool. And we need a lot of energy, right?
Yes, we do. We do need a lot of energy. So our need for new electricity is at an all-time high. Our demand projections are rising. A lot of that is due to AI, data centers, and also electrification. Think about your home. We have digital thermometers, we have Bluetooth systems, smart things. Our cars are all electrified. So there's a lot of new generation that needs to come online. Why nuclear is important and how it can help bridge the gap is because of a couple things. One, it's considered a 24/7 power. So once we turn on a reactor, it's going for 24/7. That means rain, shine, sun, wind. It's what we call baseload power. It's on all the time. It can help complement other sources, as I mentioned, wind and solar. When the wind isn't blowing all the time, you have your nuclear that's always going. The other thing and why we like nuclear is because it's carbon free. So it has zero carbon emissions. It's a great climate alternative to support other generation facilities. And then again, these are long-term assets. So a nuclear power plant, our current fleet has been around for 40, now it's extending to 60 years. These are long-term assets. These are generation opportunities, workforce, jobs, development. So these are long-term assets that will really help us get to where we need to go. The projection is that demand will increase by 2030 by 25%. And then in 2050s, they're saying about 75% of an increase in demand generation. So where we sit right now, in the next couple years, if we don't add new power sources, we are not going to be able to meet our demand and we'll have rolling blackouts. So nuclear is the way to help support that and help with that baseload power.
And Tennessee is leading the way?
Absolutely. Tennessee is definitely leading the way. I mean, we can look at it from two perspectives. You have the Oak Ridge National Lab, you have great universities, you have great community colleges, you have just a nuclear workforce ready to go. Our company in particular picked Tennessee for a multitude of reasons. We are headquartered in California, but we decided to build our project in Tennessee. We came here in about 2020, 2021. A lot of that was because of what happened at the lab. So our technology uses something called molten salt. Instead of using water, we use a salt mixture to be our coolant in the reactor where we get the steam. That technology was developed and built out of Oak Ridge. So it was the molten salt experiment reactor, which is technology that was developed for about 5 years running, but for whatever reason, it didn't take off commercially. Water was easier to develop than salt. But there's been a lot of studies and a lot of technology basis around that salt coolant. So we are building on that legacy, and that's a reason why I wanted to come to Tennessee. The other side of it too is like I said, there's a lot of great knowledge here. You have the lab expertise, you have the universities, you have the TCAT systems, you have the community college. This is just the place where people understand nuclear and know how to do it.
That's a perfect segue kind of into, well, obviously at the end of the day, they're going to have jobs. What kinds of training based on those programs you just mentioned would it take to get into a career in nuclear? So you talk about a TCAT pathway to a community college, to a four-year university, maybe.
Yeah, there's a multitude of pathways. I think there's a big misconception in nuclear that we need 100 nuclear engineers. We certainly do need nuclear engineers, but it's not, the entire plant and construction of the plant is not run by all nuclear engineers. So there's an opportunity for folks that are coming out of the TCAT system, coming out of community college, or even not even having those experiences. Coming from the Navy, for example, there's the nuclear Navy where we get a lot of great employees who have a lot of skill sets. Or folks that have worked in, engineering, other engineering, have been electricians, have been welders, and other avenues that can enter this field. The TCAT program, for example, is great. Students are in about a 1 to 2 year program where you're getting training on welding, machining, electrical systems, industrial requirements, instrumentation and controls. The TCAT system in Tennessee has done a really great job of understanding the need of the nuclear industry, partnering with organizations like ourselves. We have a lot of engagement with TCATs. We work Some of our technicians that do the install and testing and assembly actually help advise some of the faculty and work with students on the program, so that you're actually going to go to a program where there is a job waiting for you at the end of it, or at least you're learning skills that will actually apply to the real world. That's also one avenue. Of course, community colleges is another great location and place to get more nuclear skill sets. We've done a lot of work with Chat State. We've also worked with Roan State on their nuclear program. Again, thinking about more of these sort of applied skills. So a lot of those civil structures, such as welding. Welding is going to be really important for nuclear. We use a lot of concrete. We use a lot of rebar. Having a understanding construction, civil structures will really help you. You don't necessarily need that nuclear background. But if your focus is on the design and analysis of the plant, then going to a traditional university, a four-year college, getting a bachelor's degree. And again, nuclear energy, of course, but we're also looking at mechanical engineers. We're looking at electrical engineers, chemical engineers, material sciences. There's a whole vast array of opportunity. And then from my perspective, I have no engineering background. I went to law school and I started out as a business major. I have an undergrad in business and then a law degree. There's a lot of other avenues in this industry that are important. We need people that can understand the policy. This is a highly regulated industry. There's a lot of interaction between local ordinances, state laws, federal regulations, federal codes. So having a good familiarity with that is another opportunity. Even marketing in this. I mean, these are products that we're selling. Understanding how to market this technology, it can be very complex, but understanding how to simplify it and make it more approachable is very critical for us to get this technology off the ground. Same thing with finance degree. How do you price these? How do you do the cost projections? How do you scale? How do you build this out? There's so many more avenues and so many more skill sets outside from just the traditional engineer student that are necessary for the nuclear industry. There is a statistic out there, and I may not get the exact numbers, but the Nuclear Energy Institute put out some information about workforce development. If all of these projects go where they need to go, if we're all successful, which knock on wood, we all will be, there is a shortage of about 350,000 skilled employees. So there is a vast need and market for this as things progress. So the opportunity is there, but I don't want folks just to think, I have to be a nuclear engineer, or I have to go and get an advanced degree, or I have to have strong math and science skills. There's so much to the nuclear ecosystem that's needed, and there's opportunities for anybody who just has a remote interest to enter this field.
That's awesome. Now, let me ask you one question. You talk about Knoxville and Oak Ridge. Is it all concentrated in East Tennessee, or will there be opportunities across the state?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say most of our concentration right now is in East Tennessee. We've seen about, I think, maybe 10 or 12 companies have come to Tennessee, including ourselves. So there's a lot of emphasis in there. A lot of that's around manufacturing or power generation. So we're actually developing and building the reactor. But I think as the ecosystem builds in East Tennessee, the need for those skill sets, manufacturing, and jobs will spread out throughout the state. So we'll see opportunities go throughout Tennessee, because Tennessee is making a strong push to be the nuclear hub. So while it's currently focused in East Tennessee, I know a lot of companies are starting to look outward.
It seems like I hear a lot of companies that are announcing to come to Tennessee. So yeah, it's really been a great time to be a Tennessean. So let's talk about the money, right? Because these kids are like, why should I consider a career in nuclear? But they're coming out and doing pretty good as a nuclear welder, yes?
Yeah, they're doing great. These are high quality jobs, high paying. You know, the range depends on where you are and what your skill set is, but you know, the ranges are pretty good from, you know, high 50s, 60s to upwards of six figures. So these are really good jobs, and like I said, these are long-term plans. You know, we may not need 100 welders every day, but we will need to build out the manufacturing and supply chain. So our company does a lot of our own manufacturing. We have a plant in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We have over 200,000 square feet of manufacturing. So we have a bunch of welders out there building all the systems and producing everything. So you'll have a great opportunity to work all across the value chain in nuclear.
That's awesome. So talk to us about it, like a day in the life of someone who's working on one of these small modular reactors.
Yeah, so it really depends on what exactly you're doing.
What
My
your
day in
job
the
is.
life, yeah, my day in the life is
Right.
behind a computer.
All
But there
right.
are a lot of times where I do get to go out in the field and see the construction. So I'll talk about our project in Tennessee. We have about almost 25 full-time Kairos employees, including then we also have our construction crews out there. So what it could look like is right now we're pouring concrete, we're putting in rebar. So some of our engineers are going out there and they're testing that. They need to ensure that the quality of the concrete and the rebar is up to the certain specs and requirements so that we can continue to build on our license and meet the codes and requirements of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So they're either going out there doing measurements, testing things, validating things, getting reports, taking that data and turning it back in. Some folks are actually out there and they're pouring the concrete. They are understanding what the mix is, what needs to be done. Some folks are out there, evaluating the site. So as we're starting to build new projects, we got to look at the site. We're drilling into the ground. What is the environmental requirements? What's below the bedrock? What are permits or things that we need to be mindful of as we get operational? For someone like me, who's more in the office side, some of my days is getting to meet with folks like yourself, Shannon, or elected officials, talking about what this technology is, educating them on what opportunities are, providing transparency into the plan, into our ideas, into workforce development. So it could be a myriad of different things. There's a lot of opportunities. Some of our folks are building out our website. They're building out the content to share to the public. They're taking photos. They're capturing something called lessons learned. We do a lot of iterations, so meaning we build something, we validate, we test it, we understand it, but we got to get all that data. So documenting all of that to understand the next time we do it, what worked, what didn't work, find deficiencies, find processes. So depending on where you sit in the company, a day in the life can look completely different. And we're all really focused on getting to our mission, which is to getting clean power onto the grid.
And that sounds like a huge reward, right? Because it's not just, you think about the environmental um, problems that we sometimes have with coal or fossil fuels, and that kind of comes up a lot. This is a little bit different because it's clean.
Yeah. Yeah, our mission is to improve people's quality of life while protecting the environment. I would say we're almost 600 employees, and everybody is driving towards that. We
Yeah,
really see the value of what we're doing. There's an opportunity to improve people's life. Electricity equals growth, equals education. I mean, think about it. There are many places around the world that they don't have electricity. A lot of us, even us here, are connecting via the internet. We need the internet.
right.
We need power to be able to connect. Some people are doing that to improve themselves through educational opportunities. They're going to school online. Having the ability to make a small impact to improve people's life is paramount to what we do and drives a lot of our goal, and our mission is really what keeps us going.
Okay, so talk to us about the challenges of a career in nuclear. So if I'm a high school student and I'm thinking, I don't know if that's really safe or something I could get,
Yeah.
be successful at.
Well, it's certainly safe. I'll start there. There's a lot of opportunity to engage in our field. We are held to very high standards that are both internal and external. So a culture of safety is mandatory in nuclear. As we understand, there's a lot of fear and perception about the technology. It's been well documented and studied, but we do always encourage folks to engage on the topic, learn from themselves. But safety is paramount to what we do and critical to making sure this technology goes off successfully. In terms of the challenges, there are certainly a handful of challenges. I mean, this is like I said, it's safety is at the heart of it. We have really high standards. A culture of excellence is important. Attention to detail is important. It can be hard, starting a new first-of-a-kind technology is hard. It's hard to get these things off the ground, but with that presents a lot of opportunity. you're part of a team that's working to accomplish something big. And I think that's really what drives a lot of us, is that the challenge is great, but so is the opportunity. And, nuclear engineering feels hard,
It sounds hard.
It sounds hard. I will concede to that. It does sound hard. And I've been in it growing up in it most of my life, but really in the industry full time, about 4 years, and I'm still learning every day. I think understanding that you're going to learn new things. You're going to try things. You're going to fail at times, but having the attitude of being interested and engaged in what you're doing, and knowing that the challenge is great, but so is the opportunity, I think will drive folks to do it. Math and science is hard. So, you can take my route and avoid that, but shockingly, you'll have to end up coming back to it. I do talk a lot about science and science terms. I think just being open to learning is really your biggest challenge. Understanding that you're not going to know everything. A nuclear reactor, depends on where you are in the value chain. Like, if you're working for a company like us where we're building it, you're going to learn so many different parts of what it takes to build a nuclear reactor, where other folks may be just focused on one part of it, of just the instrumentation and control side. So you're really just honing in and niching down on that. It's kind of like any field. You can be an expert or a jack of all trades, or you can be really specialized in one thing. So it's really, there's the opportunity to kind of cater it to your personality and your work style. It is hard, but it is really rewarding.
I'm really excited to see it when it's all done. Is there a timeline? When do we think these are going to be up and going?
Yeah, great question. So we are working towards early 2030s. We call that COD, so commercial operational date. We don't have an exact date, but early 2030s is where we're at, and could be sooner.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so how is technology changing what's going on in nuclear energy?
Yeah, so there's a lot of changes. So let me take a step back and kind of talk about all the differences in nuclear. So our current nuclear fleet right now is what we call Generation 3. So these are light water reactors. All that means, and someone says light water reactors, means how are you cooling that fission reaction? So we use water. Light water, not important what that means for the conversation, but we use water to cool it. So now we kind of are going to a newer generation. There's something called Generation 3 Plus, Generation 4. There's a lot of terms in nuclear. That's maybe another challenge I'll say. Like, there's a lot of terms. Don't get confused by the terms and keep up with. We're all kind of talking the same things, just different people call it different things. So don't let that scare you. But Generation 3 Plus is where you get sort of to the modular side. When we talk about small modular reactors, advanced reactors, these are all kind of similar things. The way I like to explain it is what we're doing is we're going from the phone that you have in your home, landline, which maybe a lot of students don't realize or remember a landline, but I do. We're going from a landline to an iPhone is basically the way to describe it. So we're taking the technology that was there, the principles there, but we are improving upon it. So that means we are making them smaller. So instead of these big, huge plants, we're making them smaller, about 300 megawatts to upwards to 500 megawatts is what we're looking at when we talk about small. When we talk about even smaller, that's something called micro. That's anywhere 300 under. But we're making them smaller. We're making them safer. So we're building upon that technology. We're reevaluating and looking at the design to see where there's opportunities to make it safer. And then also with that smaller design, we can site them in different locations. So there's less, without getting super technical, there's less, larger siting requirements, larger safety zones, because we have a smaller footprint. We can site them in more populated locations. So we can have more, instead of having a large grid, we can have more smaller microgrids where people can connect in. And so there's a lot more opportunity and a lot more flexibility with a smaller reactor. Also in the way we build them. So we're looking at going from a very specialized build to standardizing. That's where the modular side comes in. Instead of creating, plants that are very specific to that location, what we're doing is we're building things in the factory. We are making pumps and valves that we can then install to each reactor vessel, as opposed to doing it all unique each time we do the build. So there's a lot of changes in it, and a lot of excitement.
Yeah, that does make it sound really cool. Talk to me about if I'm in high school right now and I'm thinking about a career in nuclear energy, what should I be doing right now to prepare myself for higher ed?
Yeah, great question. I would say if you're interested in math and science, keep leaning into that. Especially if you're planning to go for an engineering role, I would say math and science are really core to what you need to do. If there's an opportunity to engage with like robotics teams, or if there's a, machine shop, or just just general shop at your school, get those skills, building trades, things like that will help support you. Or on the other side, if you are interested in more of what I do, the policy and engagement with folks, take public speaking. Practice your public speaking. This is a very technical subject, but understanding how to appropriately engage with your audience, how to take really technical things and make it more approachable, make it more understandable, will help you in the long term. Just be curious. I would say, engage with the industry. There's a lot of news. There's a lot of publications that you can join if you are interested. There's something called the American Nuclear Society. They have student chapters. They have college chapters. I don't know if they have high school chapters, but you can still plug in. You can sign up for their publications. It gives you a good perspective of what's happening in the industry. There's about 10,000 plus members. I would also say another thing to do is if you know someone in the nuclear space, talk to them. Ask them about their job. Be curious, see what they do, see how they got into it. Maybe ask what pathway they took to get into this field. But if you don't know what you want to do and you like nuclear, you think it's interesting, I say just learn and read as much as you can and understand what happened before, where the industry is, the genesis of it, and to where we are today. Just being curious, I think, is all you really need to do.
I think that's such a great advice, just no matter what you think you're interested in, just be curious about it and learn as much as you can as you get ready to get into the real world. Okay, so what do you say to a kid who thinks I'm not smart enough to do that? I don't think that I can figure out these technical careers.
I would say BS. You are certainly smarter than that. You can certainly do it. If I have zero technical degree and I can figure it out, I think you can. And maybe another thing I'll add is I also have severe dyslexia. So I come to it with a learning disability. School has always been a challenge for me from, kindergarten all the way up, including law school. So if I can do it, I know you certainly can do it. There are a lot of things in nuclear. Again, I never took myself to be really good at math and science, but you don't have to be. If you're not going to be an engineer, then no problem. As long as you can understand material, you're good at reading, you're interested, you're engaged, you want to learn, you can definitely do it. There is a place for you in this industry. It's just finding where your skills align with a certain job in it. So no, I think anybody can do it. You just have to be willing to take the challenge. And if anybody challenges me, call me and I'll tell you how I figured it out.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Nikki. All right, so tell us one piece of advice that you'd give to a young person who really is thinking about a career in nuclear. I asked you before we came on, I said, if we get done with this whole podcast and we just want those young people to understand, what it means to decide I want to go into this industry, what would you have to say?
I would say do it. I say if you're remotely interested, do it. It is a very exciting time to be in nuclear. There's so much opportunity. There's so much growth. There's so much learning you can have. I mean, the things I've learned that I never thought I would is crazy. About a pebble fuel. I didn't know anything about fuel and enriched uranium. Even though I grew up in it, I really didn't know about that. That topic we did not talk about around the dinner table. But learning about that, even just from a global perspective of how important something like fuel for a reactor is to our national security, to our success as a nation, is what nuclear brings you. You may start in one discipline, but it opens you up to a world of possibility. My advice would, again, go back to the top of it, is just stay curious. You don't have to be a nuclear engineer. You don't have to be a whiz at math and science, but if you're interested and want to learn, do it. Do it. This is a very long-term career. You can get a great job. You can really build up your success. You have the opportunity to grow and really impact change on a grand scale. Your contribution in nuclear will be met and felt for years to come. There's a lot of legacy in it. It's a great industry. A lot of people are like me, who their family member was engaged in it. They maybe shied away. I shied away for a little bit and then came back around to it and have found great excitement in it. It's a really cool time to be in nuclear. And it's not just nuclear. I mean, we talk to data centers. We work with hyperscalers. We talk to in heavy industrial teams. I mean, I talk to mayors. I talk to county commissioners. I talk to senators. I talk to DOE officials. Like, you get to meet and engage with a lot of people. You also get to talk to international folks. We didn't really talk about this, but there is a whole international side to nuclear. So if you're interested in that, there's just a lot of opportunity in it. So stay curious, engage with it, reach out to people who are in the field and poke them and learn what they did, how they got into it, and try to lean in. If there's an opportunity to tour in Tennessee, if there's an opportunity to come see Kairos, come see us. If there's an opportunity if there's an opportunity to go see ORNL, Oak Ridge National Lab, do it. Do it. Expose yourself to as much as you can.
Well, we cannot thank you enough, Nikki, for your time. We're very excited about all the things that are happening in Tennessee, and we appreciate your time greatly.
Well, thank you so much. It was a great conversation, Shannon. I appreciate it. And any student out there, you can do it. Look to Kairos. We will be hiring. As I said, we are building our reactor in Oak Ridge. So please check out our website. We also do internships and co-ops. So look there if you're hoping to get hands-on experience right now. And if there is a job that you're interested in, but it's not on the website, just send your resume. We always pull and look for skilled employees. So stay engaged with us, and we look forward to seeing students out on the field.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we will get all of that linked on our website as well, so we can make sure that we're sharing all the awesome jobs that Kairos has available. Okay. Well, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate you.
We've now heard from the people on the ground, the ones making the fuel, managing the engineers, and building the policy bridges that keep nuclear moving forward. But we wanted to zoom out and hear from someone who sees the whole picture. Our next guest grew up in a rural community, started his career as a master plumber, built a family business, and eventually became the 50th governor of Tennessee. From creating the GIVE Act to invest in vocational and technical education, to helping cut the number of economically distressed counties in Tennessee in half during his tenure, Governor Bill Lee has made rural economic development a cornerstone of his time in office. And when it comes to nuclear energy, he doesn't mince words. He believes Tennessee is on the verge of becoming the global epicenter of a new nuclear renaissance. Here's Governor Bill Lee.
You asked about nuclear. You know, Tennessee is, and a lot of people don't know this because they haven't been on the inside of what's economically developing in our state, especially in Oak Ridge and in Upper East, that reverberates throughout the entire state. Tennessee is about to be the global epicenter of new nuclear renaissance. There is so much happening. Companies moving here from around the world that are involved in the nuclear industry, and the industry itself has had a ridiculous renewal. The Trump administration is increasingly focused on investments in America to produce energy. And it's not just because it's about nuclear, it's about energy independence for America. And there is no way to have energy independence without nuclear energy. So when you think about pathways, you want to think about industries that have a bright future in Tennessee. Nuclear is one of them. Now, the different types of jobs that are going to be available in the nuclear industry are as broad as you can imagine, from skilled construction, labor jobs through all the way up to nuclear scientists, physicists, and engineers, and everywhere in between. So when an industry is growing in our state, there will be a lot of opportunity and pathways for success for young people in it. And I think they ought to just seek it out through their TCAT, through their community college, through their four-year institution. Look at the paths available, the certificates that are available. Start looking into the companies that are coming into our state. There is a tremendous amount of opportunity. I'm as excited about the nuclear industry in Tennessee as I am about anything. And it won't just happen in Oak Ridge, by the way. These companies will find themselves all across the state of Tennessee, and it'd be a great pathway for a young person today.
Was there anything that you would say to him if maybe it feels scary or maybe there's some fear around what nuclear is?
Yeah, I think sometimes people think, if I'm going to work in the nuclear industry, I've got to be, I don't know, a nuclear engineering physicist, scientist, brilliant person, right? Look, that we're going to build small modular reactors in Tennessee. Those are complex construction projects that will be billions of dollars and will require skilled, craftsmen, from welders to concrete technicians to, folks that are working in civil engineering, grading, and landscape architecture. There are going to be jobs for folks in every sector in this industry. So yes, it can be kind of scary in the sense that maybe this is beyond my capacity, but I'm telling you, the capacity levels of any young person in our state can align with what's happening with nuclear energy. It's safe, it's clean, it is renewable, it is one of the most promising technologies for the next multiple decades because of the need in this country for increased energy for data centers and artificial intelligence and all that's coming. There's a huge need for power, and we don't have enough. We don't have enough hydropower. We don't have enough coal power. We don't have enough fossil fuel power. We're going to have nuclear energy in this country, and so that's why the industry is going to be so strong. But there's going to be a lot of good jobs, and they're going to be for a lot of different types of people.
Tennessee.